It all started innocently enough, or so I thought. James and I had been married for 8 years, and I had always loved cooking. The joy of creating dishes that brought smiles to people's faces was something I cherished. When I first joined his family, they seemed warm, welcoming, and genuinely excited to have me as part of their large, boisterous clan. The first holiday dinner I hosted was Thanksgiving. I remember the excitement, the thrill of planning the menu, and the satisfaction when everyone raved about the turkey, the stuffing, the homemade pies. I thought it was a one-time event, a way to make a good first impression. But as the years passed, what started as a gesture of love turned into an expectation, a burden that weighed heavily on my shoulders. Every holiday, without fail, James's family assumed I would be the one to cook. Easter, Christmas, birthdays, you name it. The gatherings grew larger, with relatives I barely knew showing up expecting to be fed. Initially, I didn't mind. I loved cooking, after all. But the lack of help, the absence of appreciation, and the growing sense of obligation began to chip away at my enthusiasm. One year, during a particularly crowded Christmas dinner, I was in the kitchen, sweating over the stove, when James's mother came in with a list of additional dishes she thought would be nice for the next holiday. "Oh, Emily, you do such a wonderful job," she said, not offering to help, just adding to my workload. I looked at James, hoping he would step in, but he just shrugged, saying, "It's what wives do, right?" His words felt like a cold splash of water, dousing the warmth I had once felt for these gatherings. That night, as I cleaned up alone while laughter echoed from the living room, I realized this was not the life I had envisioned. The joy of cooking had been replaced by the drudgery of servitude. I nodded along, agreeing to host the next holiday, but inside, a plan was beginning to form. I started saving every spare dollar, not for a specific purpose, but for a just-in-case fund, a safety net for when the weight of expectation became too much. I didn't know when I would need it, but I knew the day would come when I would have to choose between my happiness and the role I was expected to play. The holidays continued, each one more taxing than the last, with no one offering to take over or even help. James remained indifferent, his family oblivious to the toll it was taking on me. But with every dish I served, every smile I forced, I was silently counting down to the day when I would break free from this cycle of expectation and reclaim my life. That day was drawing near, and with it my resolve grew stronger. As the years rolled on, my frustration with the situation grew. I began to see the pattern clearly. The expectation was not just for me to host, but to be the sole provider of holiday cheer. My love for cooking had been twisted into an obligation, a role I was expected to fulfill without question or complaint. One Thanksgiving, after spending 2 days preparing a feast for 30 people, I sat down for the first time all day, my feet throbbing, my back aching. James walked in, his face lit up with what he thought was good news. "Mom and the aunts were talking," he began, his voice casual. "They've decided you're going to host every holiday from now on. You're the best cook, after all." I stared at him, my fork halfway to my mouth, the weight of his words settling in. "Excuse me?" I managed to say. He shrugged, a nonchalant gesture that made my blood boil. "It's not a big deal, babe. It's just what wives do." That was it. That was the moment the dam of my patience broke. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just nodded, my mind racing. "Of course," I said, my voice calm but my heart pounding with a newfound resolve. Later that night, after cleaning up the kitchen alone while everyone else laughed and drank, I went online. I had been saving money for years, not for anything specific, just a just-in-case fund. Well, just in case had arrived. I booked flights, hotels, planned an itinerary that would take me through Europe, South America, anywhere else I wanted to go. I sent out an email to his family, the words carefully chosen. "Merry Christmas, everyone! Exciting news! I have been offered an incredible opportunity for a 6-month international culinary program starting this spring. I'll be traveling across Europe to study regional cooking techniques. Unfortunately, that means I won't be able to host any holidays this year, but I'm sure one of you will step up. Much love, Emily." It wasn't a real program, but did I care? No. This was my escape, my way out from under the weight of their expectations. The next morning, James was scrolling through his phone when he suddenly sat up straight. "What the hell is this?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and panic. "What's what?" I replied, sipping my coffee, my heart racing but my face composed. "This email. You're going away for 6 months?" "Oh, yeah," I smiled, feigning surprise. "Didn't I tell you? I got into a culinary program. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." His face went pale. But what about the holidays? What about them? Who's going to cook?" I shrugged, my voice steady. "I don't know. I'm sure someone will figure it out. It's just what families do, right?" James panicked. Within minutes, his mom was calling, screeching into the phone about how I was abandoning them. His sisters flooded me with texts, accusing me of ruining the family, being selfish, asking what kind of wife just leaves her husband like this. And my favorite, from his mom, "You need to start acting like a real wife." To which I replied, "Funny. I thought a real wife was supposed to be loved and appreciated, not treated like a free catering service." She didn't like that. James spent the next week trying everything. First, he tried sweet-talking me, then guilt, then anger. "You're really going to leave me alone for 6 months? What am I supposed to do?" he asked, his voice rising with each attempt. But nothing worked. I packed my bags the night before my flight. He tried one last thing, a threat. "If you don't cancel this trip and come home, we're done." I looked him in the eye, my voice calm but firm. "Okay." I left the next morning, turning off my phone, ignoring my emails. For the first time in a decade, I spent my holidays the way I wanted to, drinking wine in Italy, eating fresh pastries in France, walking on the beaches of Greece. And back home, they were losing their minds. The holiday season approached like a storm on the horizon, and I could feel the tension building in our house. James had been increasingly irritable, his family's expectations hanging over us like a dark cloud. But this year, something was different. I was different. It was during a casual dinner, just the two of us, when James dropped the bombshell. "So, my family decided," he said, his tone nonchalant as if discussing the weather. "You'll host every holiday from now on. No more moving it around." I paused, my fork hovering over my plate, the weight of his words sinking in. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice calm but my heart racing. He shrugged, looking at me as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You're the best cook, and everyone loves your food. It's settled." I felt the familiar anger rise within me, but this time, it was different. This time, I had a plan. I nodded, my face composed, but inside, I was already packing. "Of course," I said, my mind racing with thoughts of freedom, of escape. The next day, I went online and made the necessary arrangements. I had been saving for years, a secret stash for a just-in-case moment, and now that moment had arrived. I booked flights, hotels, and planned an itinerary that would take me through Europe, South America, anywhere else I wanted to go. I sent out an email to his family, the words carefully chosen, "Merry Christmas, everyone. Exciting news. I have been offered an incredible opportunity for a 6-month international culinary program starting this spring. I'll be traveling across Europe to study regional cooking techniques. Unfortunately, that means I won't be able to host any holidays this year, but I'm sure one of you will step up. Much love, Emily." It wasn't a real program, but did I care? No. This was my escape, my way out from under the weight of their expectations. The next morning, James was scrolling through his phone when he suddenly sat up straight. "What the hell is this?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and panic. "What's what?" I replied, sipping my coffee, my heart racing but my face composed. "This email. You're going away for 6 months?" "Oh, yeah," I smiled, feigning surprise. "Didn't I tell you? I got into a culinary program. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." His face went pale. But what about the holidays? What about them? Who's going to cook?" I shrugged, my voice steady. "I don't know. I'm sure someone will figure it out. It's just what families do, right? James panicked. Within minutes, his mom was calling, screeching into the phone about how I was abandoning them. His sisters flooded me with texts, accusing me of ruining the family, being selfish, asking what kind of wife just leaves her husband like this. And my favorite from his mom. You need to start acting like a real wife. To which I replied, funny, I thought a real wife was supposed to be loved and appreciated, not treated like a free catering service. She didn't like that. James spent the next week trying everything. First, he tried sweet-talking me, then guilt, then anger. You're really going to leave me alone for 6 months? What am I supposed to do? He asked, his voice rising with each attempt. But nothing worked. I packed my bags the night before my flight. He tried one last thing, a threat. If you don't cancel this trip and come home, we're done. I looked him in the eye, my voice calm but firm. Okay. I left the next morning, turning off my phone, ignoring my emails. For the first time in a decade, I spent my holidays the way I wanted to, drinking wine in Italy, eating fresh pastries in France, walking on the beaches of Greece. And back home, they were losing their minds. The 6 months flew by, each day a new adventure, a new taste, a new freedom. I had forgotten what it felt like to live for myself, to make choices that brought me joy, not just others. I traveled through Italy, France, Spain, and even ventured to South America, immersing myself in cultures, cuisines, and the simple pleasure of living. But as the end of my trip drew near, I couldn't ignore the reality waiting for me back home. I knew I had to face James and his family to confront the expectations that had driven me away. I landed back in the States, my heart a mix of excitement and dread. I had changed, grown, and I wasn't sure if I could go back to the way things were. I texted James, letting him know I was back, and asked if we could meet. His response was immediate, a mix of relief and anger. We met at a quiet cafe, the kind of place where we used to have our first dates. He looked different, older, tired. The conversation was awkward, filled with pauses and unspoken words. I missed you, he said finally, his voice low. I missed me too, I replied, looking him in the eye. I missed being me. He sighed, running his fingers through his hair. I get it now. I really do. I talked with my family and they understand. They're willing to take turns hosting holidays. I nodded, appreciating the effort but knowing it wasn't enough. James, it's not just about the holidays. It's about respect, about partnership. I can't go back to being the cook, the cleaner, the one who's expected to sacrifice her happiness for everyone else's convenience. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and realization. I know. I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to lose you. I want to change, to be a better partner. I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision heavy. I need time, James. Time to see if you really mean it, if things can change. I'm not ready to move back in. Not yet. He nodded, his face a mix of disappointment and understanding. I'll prove it to you. I'll show you that I can be the husband you deserve. We agreed to take it slow, to rebuild our relationship from scratch. I rented an apartment nearby, a space where I could breathe, where I could be myself. We started dating again, not as husband and wife, but as two people trying to find their way back to each other. His family was another matter. They reached out, some with apologies, others with excuses. I listened, but I was firm. No more would I be the default host. They would have to step up, to share the burden or find joy in doing it themselves. The first holiday season without me was chaotic, filled with burnt turkeys and forgotten dishes. But it was also filled with laughter, with family members learning to cook together, to appreciate the effort it took. James and I spent that Christmas apart, but we talked on the phone, sharing stories of our separate celebrations. He told me about his attempt at cooking, how his sisters had taken over, how his mom had finally learned to make her famous pie. I told him about my new friends, my new life, the cooking classes I had started teaching. It was a new beginning, not just for me, but for all of us. I had reclaimed my life, my identity, and in doing so, I had given James and his family the chance to grow, to appreciate, and to change. And as I looked forward to the future, I knew that whatever came next, I would face it on my terms, with or without James. But for now, we were both trying, both hoping, that our paths would converge once again, this time with mutual respect and love at the core. Months passed, and the new year brought with it a sense of cautious optimism. James and I had been dating again, taking things slow, rediscovering each other. He had been true to his word, showing a genuine effort to change, to be the partner I deserved. Our relationship was different now, built on a foundation of honesty, mutual respect, and shared responsibilities. He had started cooking, not just for holidays but for everyday meals, learning to appreciate the effort it took. His family had also begun to adapt, sharing the load of hosting, with each member taking turns to showcase their culinary skills, however rudimentary. One evening, as we sat in my apartment, enjoying a meal he had prepared, James looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about our future." I put down my fork, giving him my full attention. "What about it?" "I want to make it right. I want to show you that I can be the husband you need, not just the one you married. I want to propose to you again, this time with the promise that I'll be there, not just for the good times, but for all of it." I felt a mix of emotions, the weight of our past struggles tempered by the hope of a new beginning. "James, I appreciate that, I really do. But before we take that step, I need to know something." He nodded, waiting for my question. "Do you understand why I left? Not just the holidays, but everything that came with it?" He took a deep breath. "I do. I understand that I took you for granted, that I didn't see you as my equal, as my partner. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I want to make it up to you, to us." I looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. "And if I say yes, what then?" "How do we move forward?" "We move forward together," he said, his voice firm. "We share everything, the cooking, the cleaning, the decisions. We communicate, we compromise, and we celebrate each other's individuality." I took his hand, feeling the warmth, the promise in his touch. "Okay," I said, a smile breaking through. "Let's try again." He pulled out a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a new ring, not the one from before, but something that symbolized our new beginning. "Emily, will you marry me again, this time as equals?" Tears welled up in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming sense of hope, of love reborn. "Yes," I whispered, and he slipped the ring onto my finger. The news spread quickly, and his family, though initially shocked, welcomed the news with a mix of relief and joy. They had seen the changes, the effort, and they knew this was not just a return to the past, but a step into a new future. Our wedding was different this time. It was small, intimate, with only those who truly supported our journey. We cooked together, setting up a buffet of dishes we both loved, a symbol of our partnership. His family, now seasoned hosts, contributed their newfound culinary skills, making it a celebration of growth and unity. As we stood there, surrounded by love and laughter, I realized that sometimes breaking away is necessary to come back stronger, to build something better. James and I had both changed, grown, and now we were ready to face whatever came next, together. And as I looked at him, my husband, my partner, I knew that this time our love would be different, richer, and most importantly, equal. Years passed, and our life together unfolded like the pages of a well-loved book. James and I had settled into a rhythm, a dance of partnership where we both led and followed. Our home was a sanctuary of shared responsibilities, laughter, and the occasional burnt dinner that we'd laugh off together. Our careers had flourished too. I had opened a small cooking school, teaching not just techniques but the joy of cooking, of sharing meals with those you love. James had taken to writing, his articles on family dynamics, personal growth, and the importance of equality in relationships gaining a following. We had become advocates for change, not just in our own lives but in the lives of others. We spoke at events, shared our story, and encouraged couples to find balance, to value each other's contributions, and to never lose sight of the individual within the partnership. One sunny afternoon, as we sat in our garden, sipping tea and enjoying the warmth of the sun, James looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "Emily, do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't left?" I smiled, the question stirring memories of both pain and growth. "I think about it often. I believe we would have continued down a path that would have led to resentment, maybe even to our end. But leaving, it was like hitting the reset button. It gave us both a chance to see what we were missing, what we needed to change." He nodded, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of our journey. "It was the hardest thing you've ever done, but also the most courageous. It saved us." "And now," I said, taking his hand, "we're not just partners. We're friends, allies, and lovers. We've built something beautiful from the ashes of our past." Our children, two vibrant souls who had grown up in this environment of equality and love, were our pride. They had seen us work, argue, make up, cook, and clean together. They learned not just from our words, but from our actions that marriage was about teamwork, about supporting each other's dreams, about compromise. As they grew, they brought their own partners into our lives, and we watched with joy as they navigated relationships with the lessons we had taught. Our home became a place of gathering, of shared meals, laughter, and stories, a testament to the life we had built. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, our daughter, now engaged, looked at us with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "Mom, Dad, how do you keep it together after all these years?" James chuckled, looking at me before answering. "It's simple, really. We never stop trying to understand each other, to grow together. And when we fail, we pick each other up. And," I added, "we always remember why we chose each other, not just for the good times, but for the journey, the growth, the challenges. Love isn't just about passion, it's about partnership, about building a life together, every day." She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "I want that," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "I want what you have." James and I exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of the path we had walked, the battles fought, and the victories won. We had come so far from the days of one-sided expectations and silent resentments. As we sat down to eat, surrounded by our family, I felt a profound sense of peace. Our life was not perfect, but it was ours, built on the foundation of mutual respect, love, and an unwavering commitment to each other's happiness. And as the evening turned into night, with laughter and stories filling the air, I knew that our journey forward would continue to be one of growth, of love, and of the beautiful, messy, wonderful life we had chosen to share. Time, as it often does, moved forward, bringing with it the inevitable changes. Our children had grown into adults, carving out their own paths, but our home remained a place of refuge, of love, and of lessons learned and passed on. James and I had become the elders of our family, not just by age, but by the wisdom we had accumulated through our journey. Our hair had turned silver, our faces etched with lines of laughter and life, but our spirit remained young, fueled by the love we had nurtured over the decades. One autumn day, as the leaves turned gold and red, our family gathered for a reunion. It was a tradition we had started, a celebration of our bond, of the life we had built together. Our grandchildren, now teenagers, ran around the garden, their laughter echoing through the trees. As we sat under the old oak, where James had proposed to me again all those years ago, our daughter, now a mother herself, approached us. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking about something," she began, her voice tinged with a mix of nostalgia and hope. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, giving her my full attention. "I want to start a tradition," she said, her eyes shining. something that will carry on what you've taught us. I want to create a family cookbook, not just with recipes, but with stories, with lessons, with the love that goes into each dish." James and I exchanged a look, our hearts swelling with pride. "That's a beautiful idea," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "A legacy of love, through food, through stories." We spent the afternoon gathering recipes, not just from our family but from friends who had become family over the years. Each dish came with a story, a memory, a lesson. There was the lasagna that James had learned to make, the pie that his mother had finally mastered, and the countless meals we had shared, each one a testament to our journey. As we worked, our grandchildren joined in, curious about the tales behind the food. They listened as we recounted the early days, the struggles, the growth, and how food had always been at the heart of our family, a symbol of love, of togetherness. The cookbook took shape, not just as a collection of recipes, but as a living document of our family's history. It was filled with pictures, notes, and even a section on the importance of sharing responsibilities, of understanding each other, of growing together. When it was finished, we held a small ceremony, presenting it to our children as a gift, a legacy. "This," I said, holding up the book, "is not just a cookbook. It's a roadmap for love, for partnership, for life. Let it remind you of what truly matters." Our son, now a father himself, took the book, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Mom, Dad, for everything." That evening, as we sat around the table, enjoying a meal prepared from the pages of our new family treasure, I looked around at the faces of those I loved. There was laughter, there were stories, there were moments of quiet reflection. James took my hand, squeezing it gently. "We did good, didn't we?" he whispered. "We did," I replied, leaning into him. "And it's not over yet." Our journey had taken us from the depths of misunderstanding and inequality to the heights of partnership and love. We had faced challenges, grown and changed, not just as individuals, but as a couple, as a family. And as the night deepened, with the stars watching over us, I knew that the legacy of love we had built would continue to thrive, to grow, to inspire. Our story, our love, was not just ours. It was a beacon for all those who believed in the power of change, of partnership, and of the enduring strength of love. And so, with hearts full and spirits high, we looked forward to the next chapter, knowing that whatever it held, we would face it together, as we always had, with love, with laughter, and with the unwavering commitment to each other that had defined our lives.
So,